Welcome back, everybody, to Cosmic Circus Reviews. Today we're talking about Gran Turismo, based on a true story. They retitled the film like 2 weeks ago to Gran Turismo, based on a true story, but I'm going to call it Gran Turismo. Just like I'm not calling HBO Max Max and Twitter X. That's stupid. All right. Yes, Gran Turismo is based on a true story, but it is also an adaptation of the video game of the same name from Polyphony Digital. It is also the latest a piece of media in a string of adaptations from PlayStation video games. So we had, of course, Uncharted in last year, The Last of Us, and Twisted Metal. Now we have Gran Turismo, and there's a couple of other movies and TV shows in the works as well. And due to the studio's unwillingness to pay and treat their actors and writers fairly, the film has been delayed from August 11th, which was where we are now, to August 25th, which means I had a chance to catch an early screening of the movie in IMAX, which early screenings usually in my area aren't in IMAX. But there was an early screening in IMAX last night, so I went to see it. I love IMAX. I love IMAX so much. Like, listen, okay? People that know me know how much I love IMAX, and I can just prove it to you right here, all right? This white letter right here, right, is a letter from IMAX. I don't think you can see it from my camera, but it is a letter from IMAX. Let me just pause it 1 second. You thought I was lying, but here you go. I got a letter from IMAX, and it only says, "Thank you for being a fan. We greatly appreciate it." Yes, I love IMAX. All right. I am no studio shill. I honestly think right now the studios need to pay their actors and writers, but I definitely am an IMAX shill. When I took the IMAX pill 10 years ago, I have never looked back, and I try to see everything that I can in IMAX because it is the ultimate format. And I'm going to talk about the IMAX experience for this movie absolutely in this review, but I will do a little warning here. It will contain mild spoilers. And I'm saying mild spoilers because, I mean, the spoilers is pretty much Jan Mardenborough's life, which is very easily accessible on Wikipedia, or you can just Google Jan Mardenborough what happened, and you'll find out. But if you haven't heard anything about his life, maybe it'll constitute as a spoiler. The film does take some creative liberties with his story, but at the same time, I still kind of want to warn people. It's going to contain mild spoilers. I'll just say right off the bat, I really enjoy this movie. I know it's gotten some mixed critical reviews, but I actually really enjoyed this movie. And I'm not that big of a fan of Neil Blomkamp as some other people were. Like, District 9 is a pretty good movie. I think his best film is Elysium with Matt Damon, Charlton Copley, and Jodie Foster. That movie is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I did enjoy Chappie. It was a strange movie, but I enjoyed it. I hated Demonic, which was his last film. I sincerely thought, and this is not me like trying to be provocative or anything like that, but I sincerely thought that after Demonic, Neil Blomkamp was never going to be able to direct anything, whether it's a small scale movie, which that film was, Demonic, or a blockbuster ever again. I certainly thought he's never going to direct into blockbuster. That movie is so bad; it is nearly unwatchable. I think I wrote that in my review. It was nearly unwatchable. It was awful. But Sony decided to give him another chance with Gran Turismo, and it's actually really enjoyable. Is it very predictable? Yes. I think the number one flaw that I had with this film is that I could see everything coming a mile away, even if I hadn't heard of Jan Mardenborough before watching this film. So Jan Mardenborough is played by Archie Madekwe. I think that's how you pronounce his name, and I apologize if it's not the right pronunciation. And he's not that great. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Like, he's not the best lead for the role. He's quite flat. Like, emotionally, he's a little flat, and that's very apparent when he has to share these very poignant scenes with his father, played by Jimon Hunsu. And of course, his father. The arc is just you see it like it's written in the sky. That the film begins. He, of course, does not accept the fact that his son is a gamer, because he doesn't necessarily understand the world of gaming and the world of professional gaming. And he wants, of course, his son to have a more serious career path, whereas, Jan believes that his experience playing Gran Turismo will actually lead him to, of course, success in the actual racing world. But there's of course a difference between, you know, racing a virtual car in an arcade and then racing an actual car. So of course that this is the heart of the family conflict. But at the same time, you know that, you know, even if you've never heard anything about Jan Mardenborough, of course his dad is going to accept him at the end. He's going to realize, oh, I made such a mistake doubting you and everything. And of course, that happens in the movie. And so you can see every single emotional beat coming a mile away. No matter if you're an avid film goer or you're just a casual fan of movies, you will see just every single beat a mile away. Especially if you've watched any type of racing movie, there's a certain structure that racing films adopt, especially when they're showing someone who's not necessarily known and then defies the odds. There is, you know, the highs. It showcases the highs of that person's path, and then of course the lowest of lows. So it's going to put the character at a very low point in his or her life, and then of course the climax, which will really raise the stakes and make you believe that, you know, this person almost didn't win, and of course they're going to win. So that's really the structure that most racing films adopt, most sports films also adopt, and Gran Turismo does it, you know, relatively well in the sense that you can see everything coming a mile away. There was a race in this movie where they present the track, and you have an announcer off screen. He's going, you know, this track is really dangerous, you know, and it's one of the most challenging races of the season. And I went, okay, yeah, this is where he's going to crash, and he does crash. like it wasn't like, oh, like, is he going to crash? No, I'm like, no, he's going to crash. Like, he's going to crash, and then he's going to realize that, oh my God, this isn't a video game, it's real life, and there are actual consequences for my actions, you know, if I'm not careful. And of course that happens. You know, when that sequence happened, I didn't necessarily feel it because I was just, you know, I knew it was coming. So there's nothing necessarily challenging or necessarily surprising about this film from a storytelling perspective. You know, he starts as a gamer. We get to see his experience, you know, as a gamer. And what's really cool about that part of the movie is that actually the only visually interesting part of Demonic was when the character, that this is a very forgettable movie, and I may miss some details, but when the character goes into this sort of trance or dreamlike state, Neil Blomkamp used volumetric capture to sort of shoot those moments, and it feels like he's plucked that volumetric capture-esque aesthetic when he wants the audience to be aware that Jan is going from, you know, real life, you know, just driving in front of his TV to being immersed in the game. So you're going to have a 3D model of a car just popping up and then plunging him into the game. And then we're going to cut to that with some gameplay footage of Gran Turismo 7. And I found that to be really well done and really immersive as a filmmaking tool, as a device to make people aware that, okay, we're going into the game. We're going into his perspective of the game. And that framing device at the beginning of the movie actually feeds into how he drives. So there's a really cool police chase happening that kind of closes up the first half of the film, where he and his brother get into some trouble. And Jan does not drink, but his brother's drinking in the car. And so now they have to avoid being arrested by the police. A police car is chasing them, and he uses the tricks that he has learned in the game to actually escape being arrested, being pulled over by the police, which I obviously do not recommend anyone doing. That's absolutely terrible. But in this case, it works. And there's some really neat visual tricks that's plucked out of the game that, you know, shows his mentality that, you know, yes, he treats racing like a game, but he's incorporating those techniques that he learned from the game in real life, and it's working out for him because Gran Turismo is that realistic. And it's in that logic that a Nissan executive, played by Orlando Bloom, decides to test the theory that we're going to take the best Gran Turismo players in the world, and we're going to train them in an academy, in Nissan Academy, to actually compete in professional racing. So he hires Jack Salter, played by David Harbour, who works for a rival racing company called Kappa. with this really douchey, Johnny Lawrence-esque kid, and you have Thomas Kretschmann who's playing the, John Kreese type character. At one point, I legitimately thought he was going to say "strike first, strike hard, no mercy." Legit. So he works for this terrible, bratty teenager who thinks he's the best at racing or whatever, and he goes to work to Miss Silent because he can't take it anymore. And that's where, of course, Jan comes out on top. He's the best racer out of all of them, and now there is this, a success story. He's winning a bunch of races, and then boom, he crashes the car, and now he's hurt, and then he realizes that maybe racing isn't for me after all, because there's some real life implications. People can get killed. I can kill someone. I can kill myself, and that's not something that I necessarily want to be a part of. And but he reconciles with himself, with his emotions, and of course we get to the final set piece of the film, which takes place at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. If you've watched Ford v Ferrari, you know how tough and how challenging this race is, and essentially, of course, Jan wins. Why wouldn't he win? Like, that's the whole point of this gamer to racer story. You want him to win because you want at the end of the film to go, well, you really did go from gamer to racer, just like Matt Damon bought a zoo and we bought a zoo. Can you believe it? Anyways, I digress, but that's pretty much the crux of the story. And it's not necessarily, I've said mild spoilers, but it's not necessarily a spoiler if you've read about Jan Martin Barrow's life. He did win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And so you're not necessarily surprised that it is happening. So that's pretty much the movie. It's a very enjoyable movie, regardless of how predictable it is and how underdeveloped the characters are. I mean, some of the characters are. I mean, the villain, the antagonist, right? This douchey kid. I forgot his name. I think it's Nicholas Kappa, right? The actor is really good. Like, he is, when you see him, all you want to do is punch him in the face, because he's such a douche. Like, I don't know how to say it in a nice, politically correct way. He is an absolute brat. Okay, he's a brat. You see his face, you're just like get out of here. What are you doing? Obviously he doesn't like the fact that gamers are having a shot at being a professional racer. So he's trying to do everything in his power to stop him from winning. And even if it literally means killing himself to kill him. No joke. At some point, he deliberately crashes his car to try and kill Jan. That's how terrible of a person he is. But because we don't really spend time with him, nor his father, who's played by Thomas Kretschmann, we don't necessarily, feel hatred towards him, because he's such a paper-thin character. But he's the main antagonist of the movie because he's bad. He's willing to crash his own car to kill someone just so that the gamers won't have a chance at winning. That's how terrible of a person he is. And it's a great, it's a great way to to explore this very sort of tormented arc that he has, that his father is absolutely feeding him, because there's a scene at the beginning of the film where they're having dinner and it's very tense, and his father is very carefully choosing his words to manipulate him, like emotionally manipulate him and torment him. And I found that really fascinating. But Thomas Kretschmann is in the film for 2 scenes. That scene, and then at some point he randomly pops up in the climax, speaking to his son's ear, going, defend your position. And that's it. But if the film had explored that relationship more, it would have been a real, Johnny Lawrence, John Kreese situation, whereas Jan is Daniel LaRusso and Jack is Mr. Miyagi, right? You can see the parallels, even when the parallels aren't that developed. You can clearly see the parallels, right? This washed up former racer finally having a chance to train someone to be the best again when he didn't have the chance to be the best, right? Using some very unorthodox techniques to get him to his best. The parallels are there, but I will say David Harbour is really good as Jack Salter. He is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He is the best part of this film. Without him playing Jack Salter, man, this movie might have not been as enjoyable as it was. He is tons of fun to watch on the big screen. Some of you said, some of you said it is the best film role of his career. I don't know about that, but I will say he is very entertaining, thoroughly entertaining. All right, thoroughly entertaining, very enjoyable to watch. He has great chemistry with Orlando Bloom, who's of course he's bathed in marketing executive cliches. But it's been a while since we've seen Orlando Bloom on the big screen in an actually good role, because he's made a lot of bad movies after, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and even Pirates of the Caribbean. So it's great to see him in a role that suits him, that suits his personality and his acting style, and he does a really good job in the movie as well. I also really enjoyed Jimon Hounsou as the father. Again, very cliched arc. You see everything coming a mile away, like you see it all coming a mile away, but he's, Jimon Hounsou is a very underrated actor. He has a very, very good, not very good, a very graceful. He has a very graceful screen presence, and I very much enjoy that coming from him. And the scene that he shares again with Archie Madekwe is not that great, but there is this earnest form of this earnest emotional bond between the two that is very interesting to watch. But what I really loved about this movie, this is the main reason why I enjoyed Gran Turismo, is its racing sequences, right? Because if the racing sequences weren't good, I would have said, man, this movie was not great. But the racing sequences had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and this is part of the reason why you need to see this movie in IMAX. Not only was the whole thing shot with IMAX cameras, the Sony Cine Alta 2 Venice IMAX cameras, to be precise. They actually put these Sony Venice cameras on FPV drones, and some of the footage that you get to see in that film, man, the drone footage, unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable. I kid you not. There were literal moments where the drone swooshes through the crowd like a practical crowd, and I literally went like, and then it plunges into the track, follows the race car like this, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And I don't believe that this approach to racing, right, which is brand new, no one has ever shot a racing sequence in a film like this. I don't believe for 1 second that it would have happened had Michael Bay's Ambulance never released. You can clearly see the aesthetic inspiration from Michael Bay, because what Michael Bay did in that film is unbelievable. Love him or hate him, right? Michael Bay is a true filmmaking pioneer. He did IMAX 3D for the first time in Transformers films, right? Put 2 cameras on the same rig to do 3D. No one has ever done this before. And shooting major action set pieces on a drone, which is something that very few filmmakers have actually actively experimented with. Michael Bay's put the drones, he literally put the drones everywhere, and he made these really elaborate shots that no one else could have pulled off. Neil Blomkamp probably saw that movie and went, I gotta do this. But I'm gonna do it in IMAX, right? I'm gonna shoot IMAX for the drones, right? And you get this really visceral, immersive feeling that you cannot get anywhere else. Oh yeah, you can see it in Dolby and it'll be fine, I guess. And if you don't live near an IMAX theater, that's okay. But if you live near an IMAX theater, you got to pay the extra money for the IMAX experience. I'm sorry to say this, because like the racing sequences alone are so worth the price of admission. I mean, you know exactly how it's going to go down, right? Jan is ultimately going to win the 24-hour race, but at the same time, they consistently elevate the stakes, right? By making these car crashes, not just Jan's crash, but other people crashing their cars, feel impactful and very quick, right? Usually in racing movies, when a car crashes, right, it slows down. There's slow motion going on for extra dramatic effect. Here it's like, boom, a car crashes in a split second, bam, like that. The guy's going too fast, he crashes his car, it blows up. And you're like, oh my God, I did not see that coming. Because that's, in real life, if you've ever watched if you ever watch a car race, and the car crashes like that. And same thing if you're just driving your car, right? You learn this in driving school. When your car crashes, it's a split second. It is a split second, and it is, you know, the car is one of the most dangerous things that we use every single day. It can kill us like this. And the way that Neil Blomkamp really showcases this in this movie is both thrilling and devastating, because it's exactly what a car crash does. In Montreal, we had a professional Formula One racer called Gilles Villeneuve who passed away due to a car crash. His car crashed, like the car crashed like that. Boom! It hit the grass. His body literally flew out of the car. He was dead in an instant. And of course the footage is online. It is horrifying, but that's exactly what this film presents. Very, very, very disturbing, violent, and quick car crashing. And that really elevates the stakes, because again, they want to show that this isn't a race, a virtual race. Because if it's a virtual race in the game, whatever, like you reset, you're not dead. But if your car crashes in real life, I mean, if you're not dead, someone else can die, and you can be permanently scarred from that crash. And so in this movie and in this situation, they really elevate the stakes. The racing sequences are super fast-paced. They're amazingly energetic, right? The drone photography is I mean, oh my God, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Every single time there was a racing scene, even if I saw it coming, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is truly out of this world. Incredible. Out of this world. Incredible. And, you know, I believe in terms of like the cinematic prowess of a sports scene, racing is probably the most cinematic sport there is, because you can do so much with racing. So there's going to be a Formula One movie coming out very soon from Joseph Kosinski, starring Brad Pitt. And they've said that we're going to put Sony Venice IMAX cameras as well on cars. But Neil Blomkamp already beat you to it with Gran Turismo. And as much as I love Joseph Kosinski and Claudio Miranda, I mean, that partnership is just the greatest director cinematographer collaboration that we have right now is Joseph Kosinski and Claudio Miranda. But as much as I love these two, Neil Blomkamp and Jacques Jouffet, the cinematographer, he beat you guys to it, because he said, I'm not only going to put Sony Venice IMAX cameras in cars and on the racetracks, but I'm also going to do it with FPV drones. Good luck with that Formula One movie with Brad Pitt, by the way, because like after that, I'm just like, no, there's no way in hell. Like that movie's going to be, in terms of racing sequences, that movie's going to be as better a racing film than Gran Turismo. Of course, maybe the story's going to be better, because the story of Gran Turismo is just amazingly paper thin, and you can see every single beat coming a mile away. And the lead actor, Archie Madekwe, is not that great. But aside from that, the enjoyable factor of watching Gran Turismo is just really the races. Like, it's the number one reason why you should go see this movie when it eventually comes out in theaters on August 25th. The IMAX experience for this film is off the charts, amazing. And those racing sequences will literally and figuratively, I mean this, take your breath away. You will go completely nuts. The audience that I was with, it wasn't sold out, but it was pretty packed. They were going crazy at some of the racing sequences, and I couldn't believe how great it was. It is a shame that the story isn't as gripping as it should be, you know, because a biopic doesn't need to be traditional. I mean, Oppenheimer just came out. It completely threw the rule book of the biopic out of the window and created something that is unbelievable, right? You can reinvent the biopic structure. It's fine. It doesn't have to be this formulaic, you know, but if it wasn't that formulaic, I think we have, you know, a really good movie in our hands, and one of the best of the year. But because it's formulaic, because it's predictable, you know, it doesn't live up to its potential. But it's still a pretty good movie. I think it is going to be, despite the mixed reviews, I think it has like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. I'm not 100% sure. Despite the mixed reviews, I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this movie. And I think it is going to be a genuine crowd pleaser. Like, I think people are going to go see this movie and actively enjoy themselves. And I'm very glad, I will say this, even if you don't like this movie, you will be very glad that you will never have to see the Gran Turismo trailer in front of every single movie ever again. I saw a lot of movies in theaters this year, all right? a lot of movies in theaters this year. I saw the trailer, and literally since the trailer came out, I saw it in front of every movie. I went to see Elemental. I'm like, they're not going to show the Gran Turismo trailer because it's a kids film, right? And Gran Turismo is not necessarily a kids movie. They showed it. I went to see, what did I go see last week? Oh yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They showed the trailer. Gran Turismo. I couldn't believe it. They showed the trailer in front of every single movie. What did I go see? Oh yes, Shortcomings. Randall Park Shortcomings. Gran Turismo trailer. How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Gran Turismo. Beau is Afraid. Gran Turismo. I mean, Jesus. Like, they showed the trailer in front of every single movie, and I got really tired of it, and I couldn't wait to see this movie, so I could never watch that trailer again. But the movie is actually quite enjoyable. I think a lot of people are, again, going to really like this movie. If you're a fan of the game, maybe you'll like fall head over heels over this film. And if you're not necessarily versed into the game, but know the true story of Jan Martinborough, you're also going to enjoy this movie. I think in terms of a conventional blockbuster, it's as conventional as it gets. But I think a lot of people are going to be are going to walk out of the theater being very satisfied. If you're not seeing this movie in IMAX, you're doing something wrong. If you do live close to an IMAX theater, if you don't, well, whatever. But if you do, you're doing something wrong. So I am going to rate this movie a 7 out of 10. The racing sequences are spectacular. David Harbour, Orlando Bloom are great. Jimon Hounsou is also very good. Ginger Spice also plays Jan's mother. Can you believe it? She wasn't that great. I'm sorry. She wasn't that good. But she's barely in the movie. Some of the characters are a little underdeveloped. And of course, the story, it's fine, right? We ultimately root for Jan to win, but we know what's coming. And it doesn't have any surprises left in store. Aside from some pretty good needle drops, we got some Kenny G, we got some avalanches. The avalanches, actually, I'm not going to show it, but I'm a huge fan of the avalanches. I got since I left you right here. One of the greatest albums of all time. Yeah, I was very happy when we had an avalanches needle drop in this movie. Anyways, that's my review of Gran Turismo. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I'm going to do more reviews like these very soon. Go on, of course, thecosmiccircus.com. We've got some exclusive scoops. I mean, I Am Groot Season 2 is coming out in September. And who broke that news? The Cosmic Circus. Not only that, but will Jeffrey Wright will reprise his role as the Watcher. That was confirmed by the trailer. The Cosmic Circus broke that news. Absolutely follow them on social media. They have a Twitter account. It's not X. I'm never going to call it X, okay? On Twitter, on Instagram. I think they're on Blue Sky. They're on Threads. They're everywhere. Follow the Cosmic Circus on social media. Check out the website. We've got some really good written reviews, exclusive scoops, news, feature articles, interviews as well. Definitely follow me on at Max from Quebec on social media as well. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Bye-bye.